everyone, and welcome to Dragon Talk. I am excited to start off this Monday right, or wrong, or differently. It is, what is today? Today's Monday the 25th? Is that
right.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it's happening. It's all
It's
here.
fall.
It's fall.
Beautiful, beautiful Seattle fall.
I brought, I got my corduroys out. I've grown my beard. It's definitely fall. It's happening. Here in Seattle, it was very cold and rainy, so it is.
By very cold, we mean like
60?
barely.
It's on brand. That's all I know about. It's Seattle is happening as it's purported to do. But I'm Greg Tito. Hello, everyone out there in the world. I'm joined by Mr. Matt Cernan.
Howdy.
And Mr. Chris Perkins.
Greetings.
And we are going to record two Lore You Should Know segments. I think the plan is to do one on Dwarves in Chult, as well as Lantan. But before we get to all that, I want to update you, Twitch folks, with the amazing announcements, because we've got a lot. Things are always going on here on the Twitches. Tomb of Annihilation is out. We've been talking about it for months. And Stream of Annihilation with the Big Bang, and people have been playing it and doing it all up and down all over town. You can finally pick it up in your local store or on the web, out everywhere. You can get it on D&D Beyond. You can get it in Roll20. You can get it in Fantasy Grounds. It is everywhere, and I hope you guys are playing through it. I've enjoyed reading it as well as seeing all the stuff coming from it, and your guys' work on it has been exemplary. It's doing really good stuff. So.
Yay!
Yay! And to kick that all off, we're starting two things. One is Podcasts of Annihilation. So last week we debuted two new episodes from podcasts around the D&D live play community. We had a bunch of really great creative folks like those at Nerd Poker, Taking Initiative, Encounter Roleplay, Dungeon Rats / God's Fall. Aram does the DM for both of those, but he brought a lot of his Dungeon Rats crew in to that episode. Sneak Attack with Reed and all those amazing people over there. Drunks and Dragons, Venture Maidens, Dungeon Drunks, D&D's for Nerds, and You Meet in a Tavern. And those last ones, Venture Maidens, we're going to be talking to Celeste, the Dungeon Master from that podcast today at 3 p.m. So I'm excited about that. And two of the folks calling in from D&D is for Nerds from Sans Pants Radio all the way from sunny Australia will also be calling in at 4 p.m. Luckily, it's like 9 a.m. their time, so they're in the future. It's okay. We're also here on this Twitch channel starting up a new season. We're calling it kind of like season 2 of Tomb of Annihilation stuff. So a couple of notes on that. Maze Arcana is moving from 7 p.m. Pacific time to 6 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That will be starting in October. High Rollers is moving to Wednesdays from 10 a.m. Pacific time to 12 p.m. noon Pacific time, and that's try to get more in the peak time for those folks in the UK. So those of you in that time zone, Greenwich Mean Time, will have much more stuff happening in the time zone that you're most able to watch. One Grung Above is a new show with Chris Lindsay, building on his Grung game from the Stream of Annihilation. A lot of those same folks are coming in to join him, such as Lauren Urban, Routine, as I like to call him now, Rudy and Satine. Will be joining that as well. And that is Wednesdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Roosters and Dragons is another new show with Lauren Urban, also Oboe Crazy, as the Dungeon Master for a bunch of folks from Rooster Teeth community. So I'm excited about that. We'll have more information on them coming out soon, but that will be on Thursdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Also, Encounter Roleplay is doing a Learn to Play starting on Saturday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Those folks are also from the UK, and they do a great job of teaching people how to get into the game. Programming that we're really, obviously a lot of the stuff we've been doing is like expert, like, oh, this is how you play, but now here's how you would take Tomb of Annihilation and play with a bunch of new players. So I think that's a lot of fun. Also, Girls Guts Glory are going to be streaming. They are changing up their format from doing the smaller 15-minute edited episodes into full-blown 2.5-hour streams. That will be on Sundays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and they're going to start on October 7th. Which is pretty darn cool. Dragon Friends are also from Australia. They just wrapped up their season, so they'll be returning also later on this year. No news on that exactly on timing, but whole bunch of fun stuff. We're going to have some graphics and everything in the next week or so to make sure you're aware of all the new stuff that'll be rolling out here on this year channel. And then, of course, Dice Camera Action started back up last week. It's going strong. Already got some feels in there. I only got to watch the first half, but it was right when you Summerwise ate the mouse, which made me very, very laughy, very, very giggly. You're a terrible person.
Hey, I'm not the one who fed the pet mouse to the pseudo-dragon.
I know. It's like you offer something up, it's going to eat it, right? It's like, here you go, cat. Don't play with this bird.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's going to happen. Extra Life is going to be going on November 3rd and November 4th. We are already raised tens of thousands of dollars for kids, for children's hospitals. We're doing a bunch of different things. We've done Seattle Children's Hospital in the past. We're doing some Texas Children's Hospital, as well as one in Florida as well. I think Nathan Stewart is doing raising money for the Arnold Palmer Hospital down in Florida as well. And we're looking at international things where we can donate to as well. But essentially, we'll be playing Dungeons & Dragons from November 3rd through November 4th. That entire time, raising money. You can donate. Lots of fun ways to get into the game. You can donate to have people create their character with a specific race, class, combo, backgrounds, things like that. Name the character. You can also give us healing potions or other ways to affect the game that way, because I feel like it's going to be a very deadly series of adventures, it being set all in Chult. So look for more information on that. But if you go to our Extra Life page, you can start donating right now. And also the total package, which you guys worked on, is also all the money that Wizards would get from that is going towards this exact same charities are going towards it. We've raised tons of money through Dungeon Masters Guild already. It's already been like a week and a half since it's been out, and it's already breaking all kinds of records as far as the amount of money we've raised for stuff. So good on you for working on it and getting it ready to go. And
fun.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's amazing. All right. Dungeon Master Screen Reincarnated is out now. It's got awesome art with Tyler Jacobson's flying red dragon on it. We updated all the stats on the back, so it's totally more useful in play. Go check that out. That's in stores. Tomb of Annihilation dice are also out there. We've seen a whole bunch of people tweet about those. The pictures look really awesome. I love being able to, have it be like a travel kit. Like you can take it with you, like your dice with your minis, places like that. So that's tons of fun. Today we've got episode 9 of Force Grey, Lost City of Omu, dropping around 5:15 or so. Come back and check that out. It's awesome. I had some details on that, but I totally forgot about it. Nope, we didn't make it in here. And then, of course, we have Rachel Seeley and Erica Fermina will be playing Neverwinter later on tonight. And tomorrow on Dragon Plus with Bart Carroll, Kate and Emmy. So Kate Irwin and Emmy Tanji will be stopping by to talk about the Tomb of Annihilation art and all the interior stuff that's been going on in there. I'll be back.
Mentioning Kate is the art director for Tomb of Annihilation, and Emmy Tanji was the graphic designer.
That's correct. Yeah. So Kate handles a lot of all the interior art, and Emmy takes all the text and art and puts it together to make it look like the pages that you see. She designs our T-shirts. She designs almost everything we see that has Dungeons and Dragons on it. It's all touched by Emmy and made to be amazing. I'll be back for D&D news at 3:30, warming up the microphone, spitting on it for Chris as he gets ready for Dice Camera Action, starting at 4 p.m. And then it's back with Maze Arcana Fury's Reach at 7 p.m. Tomorrow night. All right, I think I mentioned almost everything else on here already, so we can jump right to the fun little lore. Lore you should know, right? Sorry to make you guys go through all that.
Take a drink.
I take a drink, I know, right? I always feel like telethon-y when I try to run through it as fast as possible. Did you see when I got to do it with Matthew Lillard? He was just cutting in pretty much every time I tried to do announcements.
Yes,
like, what are you doing with the announcements? I'm like, I know, I got it. There's a lot.
I feel like you need a little sound effect between announcements.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Do like a ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Or just have somebody there with a gong or something.
Nice. Can we get some Yuan tea?
Dragon's roar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roar. We got to work on that. That's a good call. And maybe we'll add it into the chat so you guys can do it too. How are you guys doing? Everybody in there hanging out in chat? You doing well? All right. Amazing. We are going to start it up with the Lore You Should Know segment right about now. I heard the clicks, so it means that we're recording. Thanks, Ryan. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
What's our topic?
Dwarves and Chult.
Dwarves and Chult. All right.
All right. Okay.
Woo!
Yeah.
We're doing it. We're really doing it, guys.
As soon as the sound guy stops making sounds.
We're really doing it.
This is a professional operation.
We are making the sausage.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about, folks. Podcasting history.
Yeah.
Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know. My name is Greg Tito, and I'm joined by these wonderful lore masters.
Howdy, I'm Matt Cernett.
Hi, Matt.
And I'm Chris Perkins.
Hello. And today we are going to talk about little bits and bobs of D&D lore that you can put into your game. And today it's dwarves in the Chultan Peninsula.
Dwarves in No.
In Chult. So yeah, they're there, but they're a different breed of dwarf or a different kind of dwarf than we've seen before.
Yes, and kind of no.
Yes, and kind of no.
Yes, and kind of that was a good. That's a good way to say it. The way that they got there is kind of wibbly wobbly in the lore, and then like what they are once they're there is also wibbly wobbly in the lore. There's lots of sort of additions and changes and so on that are made over time to the sort of lore of what dwarves are in Chult. And so,
In the beginning.
Yes. Where did it start? All the way in the before times.
So in sort of like real world timeline style.
Yeah.
At some point, I don't know, like 30,000 years, some super long time ago, dwarves came to Chult, and then
There were mountains there.
yeah, because dwarves like mountains.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
And
Was the climate the same? Was it still like
yeah, it was-
rainforesty?
It was
Yeah.
a crazy jungle.
Yeah.
and-
Was this progenitor race time, or is this after that?
After.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like a dwarven diaspora from sort of the south outward north and to different places all over the world. Because the dwarves actually, I think they like elves and orcs come from another planet or realm or something, and they arrive and they have this diaspora from this kingdom that falls. And so some of them make it out all the way over to Chult. And somehow some of them end up just sort of becoming what it was called wild dwarves. And then I think it's a later group that comes in and becomes the dwarves that are occupying the mountains. And those are not wild dwarves. But what wild dwarf means changes even within second edition. So it gets kind of weird and funky. So the original Jungles of Chult, for instance, doesn't mention anything about Thardhar, who is later on described as the deity of the wild dwarves. And it's sort of this weird dwarven deity of jungles and hunting. And
Do the
In a time when there were deities for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then that sort of introduced that character, and then the wild dwarves in the Jungles of Chult original module are kind of dark-skinned, just dwarves living in the jungle. And then in the book where they're described with Thardhar, they're like hairy, like they've got like hair on their arms, and they're
more so than
like
normal dwarves?
weird Yeti-looking things.
Oh.
Yeah, it gets very strange. And it just kind of goes all over the place a little bit. And so I think with this Tomb of Annihilation, we tried to kind of coalesce things a little bit better than that. But
Yeah.
Okay.
We also we didn't want to create new subtypes of dwarves, so we kind of established or decided that they're mechanically identical to shield dwarves. They're just cosmetically different because of the land that they live in and the turmoil that they've gone through living in Chult with its volcanoes and generally unstable topography, particularly if you take into account the spell plague, where Chult was basically an island for a time.
And completely separated from the rest of not just in that, but nobody went there, really.
But basically we say, there are dwarves living on Chult. They've lived there a long time. Many of them have been driven out from the mountains because of the volcanic activity and basically tried to eke out a living elsewhere.
Were there two different tribes? Were there the mountain dwarves were in the highlands and then the wild dwarves were in the lowlands, or is that
I think
unclear?
I think our understanding now is more like there's a group of dwarves, a population of dwarves in Chult. And if they are sort of moved outward from the mountains, they adopt sort of a wild lifestyle.
Those who have been forced to live on the surface have adjusted to their terrain as best they can.
Right. I mean, they are living in a crazy dinosaur zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
right.
So there aren't, there aren't a ton of them anyway.
Yeah.
Most of them got et.
And the ones that didn't
Right.
passed on their genes to others. So
Yes.
that's why they have these strange features.
And speaking of strange features and genes, there is an anomalous group of dwarves living among them who are albinos. It's just sort of a weird further deviation.
So that was described in the original Jungles of Chult module, where the ones living in the mountains, for reasons unexplained, were albinos.
Just to make it different from
Yeah.
just dwarves from the continent.
Yeah, and I think the idea was it was because they were living underground all the time, which is kind of like, what? But
Then why aren't all dwarves albinos?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Everything
You're
in a-
shattering my worldview of what dwarves are.
So there was sort of weird, questionable world building as you go throughout the whole thing, and we kind of tried to take the best bits and the most interesting ideas.
Yeah.
And it's very visually striking to have kind of these strange albino dwarves, and so that's kind of one of the things we wanted to present with this product.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that there was within the population, there's many albino, more than would be normal in the population of all dwarves. Are they separate, or are they?
They commingle.
They commingle.
Yeah, there's no reason to suggest there's any barrier or wall between albino dwarves and other dwarves who live in the area. In fact, one of the guides that you can pick up in Port Nyanzaru is an albino dwarf, and he just lives there with other dwarves. He's kind of just, I'm weird.
Do they have any like specific status or power to them in the legends?
No, there really isn't anything. It's just a physical difference.
Yeah.
What about the deity that you mentioned?
Thardhar.
What is he like?
So Thardhar, in earlier editions, really was just like the god of the wild dwarves, and he likes jungles and hunting, and he's totally unlike every other dwarf deity because he's just jungles and hunting. So I don't think we really touch him in the new adventure, but I think if we were to present him again in the future, it makes sense for there to be a god among the dwarven pantheon of sort of wildernesses and of hunting. Dwarves sometimes need to hunt; they need to go out into the wilderness.
Yeah.
And for this figure to be someone named Thardhar, and then for characters who are out in the wilderness and hunting all the time, to worship this one in peculiar.
I want him to appear as a giant walking stony Tyrannosaurus Rex, so it can have all these dwarves hanging off it, just sort of riding on its back. We're on a hunt. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't this the greatest? We're on our own deity.
Yeah.
So I
makes
mean,
sense.
that's probably how we present it in the future. I think.
Okay. Is he albino or is he
80 feet tall. Is he albino?
Well, he wouldn't be much of a dwarf, then, would he?
No.
Like I think his holy symbol is actually like clawed gauntlets or something like that. So like there is sort of an element of or an idea of sort of savagery to the deity, but it's one of those ones that didn't get a whole lot of
Gauntleted
attention.
Tyrannosaurus hands.
They're very tiny.
That's right.
We venerate him as we do. Nice.
Yeah, because there's like, gosh, I was just working on it today. Because there's got to be probably almost a couple dozen dwarven deities that have rattled around in the game, but we really only ever talk about a handful of them, and Thardhar isn't in that handful. He hasn't really had a whole lot
Weird
written about
outlier.
him.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But so if obviously dwarves are a pretty popular player race for people. If they wanted to play through Tomb of Annihilation, would it make sense for one of the player characters to adopt some of these qualities?
They could say that they're a shield dwarf, but visually they're albino. And then they'd be pretty much an albino dwarf at that point.
Yeah, comfortable with being outside and doing all the hunting and things that would do that.
They just like any other dwarf. They're highly adaptable, patient, best with their feet on the ground.
Yeah, and I mean there are certainly backgrounds that you could choose to sort of take up the role of being like the Outlander and things like that.
The Far Wanderer.
Yeah.
All right, so then in temperament, they're not much different than normal dwarves.
They're dwarfy temperament.
Okay.
Yeah, they like all the things dwarves do.
So they're not as bestial as the clawed gauntlets kind of.
No, they're no.
denotes.
The weird Yeti dwarves. They're not.
So that
We'll
was
say
just
that when we do the Dwarves of the North.
I don't know why the dwarves got hairier in a hot environment.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
Right.
If they get hairier anywhere, it'd be up in the Great Glacier.
It's to protect from the bugs, right? They need to have.
Right.
some
Okay.
things,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can see that.
I could buy that.
Yeah.
Especially if the hair somehow captured like air molecules or something like that.
Kept it apart from them.
That's right.
Right.
That's how they float.
That's what I was thinking. That's how they cross the rivers.
That's a cushion of air.
Beard balloon.
That's fine. I'm growing the beard out. That makes perfect sense. So
See, that's world building. Right
that is
there.
right. It's happening right here.
Beard balloons
around the table. Beard balloons.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that seems like a pretty good overview of what dwarves are like there. I think it doesn't seem like the kind of place dwarves would end up. Are there any like special minerals or things that they could get there that they can't get anywhere else? Is that
Well, one of the reasons why people like going to Chult and stuff like that is that they do have very rich gem mines and metal mines in the mountains of the sort of volcanic mountains of Chult. And so that's one of the things that people come there to get, to trade for, and so on and so forth. And the dwarves that are or were in the mountains, depending upon what time period we're in, are the ones who basically controlled that sort of mining and the sale of those things to the outside world.
And is that
in Tomb of Annihilation, that's still true. And in the adventure, you can actually help the dwarves recapture a mine and a forge that they lost. So they lost a mine called Wormheart Mine. There's a big threat there now. And then they also lost the adjoining forge, and they'd like to get that back. So you can actually help them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there lots of mines like that kind of all
They're
throughout?
scattered all over the place, yeah. There
Okay.
are lots of places on the map of Chult where you see sort of the mining symbol indicating where a mine is, but we don't describe it in detail.
And 9 times out of the 10, that's a dwarven
It
settlement.
probably is or has dwarven overseers.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. So that's good to know because I think in us talking about it, I just assumed they were like eking out survival as much as possible. But no, they were actually doing the industry and
Chult is such a
mining.
huge place. There are some mines and enclaves that have doubtless just been destroyed by the volcanic eruptions. There's more volcanoes in Chult now than there ever were.
Wow.
We added a few to indicate the volatility of the land and to suggest that not everything is ended up just perfectly the same after the spell plague.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the dwarven populations would just be happy to be insular and mine stuff themselves and not trade with the outside world. And so, whoever is sort of getting these gems out of Chult has some sort of secret connection. And how they get them out from the dwarves, who knows, right? Because it's pretty much a trackless jungle, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
the dwarves probably have some secret means of getting closer to them, and they probably have some secret, drop-off point or pickup point.
The two forces most likely to collide with the dwarves over issues of like custody of gemstones and mines would be Baldur's Gate and the Flaming Fist, who have a base out of Fort Belowarian and have this habit of basically laying claim to whatever they happen upon. And then the other is possibly the Zentarum, because the merchant princes of Port Nyanzaru use the Zentarum to create, rely on Zentarum mercenaries to create or open up safe pathways to some of the nearest mines to the city where they can get access to resources at minimal cost to them in terms of, life and...
Not their agents dying. It's
Right, yes,
other
exactly.
dwarves, that's fine. Yeah.
And the Zentarum are more than happy to try to carve out these passes to the mines. Not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. So get a job with the Zentarum.
It'll be short. You'll be well paid for the 3 months that you live.
Yeah. They don't call it the Black Network or something.
Yeah,
It's the nice network. We got lots of we got the benefits. What about any connections to the Duergar or with the Underdark in general? Is that...
Some people have asked in the past about what the connection to the dwarves of Chult is to the Underdark. I assume, although we don't detail it in any great way, that there is, quote-unquote, Underdark under Chult. And so one could imagine
Dinosaurs in caves.
and deep underground conflicts between the dwarves of Chult and Duergar underneath them.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what the secret way out that Matt was alluding to could be through there, and it might be
some sort of Underdark connection. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I have a vague recollection that they are sort of immune from that kind of incursion of like Drow and stuff like that, being that they are in Chult, but that is just totally vague. I'm not certain that's the case.
Just Lolth just doesn't like the
just-
jungles, so.
Just that
kind of thing?
I mean, one of the reasons that they're out there is because they're somewhat protected from that kind of a thing. But that might be crap. That might be garbage. So just,
Well, that's a neat idea, though.
rely on
Because,
that.
right, yeah, the Underdark map, if I remember, the overlay is very, very much in the Sword Coast in the northern area, but not so much in Chult. So
Well,
the settled areas of the Underdark.
the
I
known
guess.
areas.
Yeah.
the maps that we have of the Underdark regions and so on have all been sort of up in that area. There are known to be other areas that have the Underdark, of course, but we don't really have a whole lot of maps of Underdark areas
Right.
because they're really hard to map.
Well, I mean, that goes in with the themes of Chult, too, of like, oh, here's an unmapped region of the Underdark. I could see someone.
I mean, Chult is such a fabulous place to explore just on its own. We've never felt the need to develop an Underdark middle of it.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But Dungeon Masters out there, you might want to.
Yes, you might, particularly if you want to go find that doorway under the peaks of flame that leads to the nightmare realm of Dendar the Night Serpent.
Oh yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
We talked about that in some other segments.
Bad.
Yeah.
don't go there.
In general.
Don't do what Johnny Yonti does.
I could just see the propaganda posters up in Port Nyanzaru. Don't be Johnny Yuanti. All right, well, that's a good ending point. Thank you guys for letting us know about what's going on with the Dwarves in Chult, and got lots of threads there. I want to start running, Out of the Abyss and Tomb of Annihilation at the same time. I think that's what I'm going to do.
Have fun with that.
It's going to be fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week.
See ya.
Bye. I forgot to get your Twitter handles and everything.
They're on the
Yeah. But for the podcasting,
Oh, sure.
Yeah. You got enough followers. It's fine. You don't need any more. Yeah. Cool. That's a good one. I was talking to some guy, Luis Medina, who's I've been talking to about doing the Rooster Teeth show with. Yeah. But he on Twitter over the weekend said that he's basically running all of the adventures at the same time. Like Elemental Evil is like the one that they were doing, but then he's weaved
putting
in
bits of this and bits of that, and
exactly.
I do that in Dice Camera Action.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it is.
To have that skeleton backbone and then be like, oh, by the way, there's demons going on underneath and giants are doing their thing. And then there's this whole death curse happening all at the same time.
Why not?
That's good stuff. I want to do it. Cool. You guys ready to do Lanten?
Very much so.
Lantan, am I saying it right?
Lantan, that's how I say it.
Lantan?
Yeah.
All right. Lantan. I love it. I'm not getting any chat on this thing, so I need to refresh. Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know. I am Greg Tito, and I'm joined by these wonderful lore masters.
I'm Matt Cernett.
And I'm Chris Perkins.
And today we are going to dive into bits of Dungeons & Dragons lore of the Forgotten Realms that you can use in your game, perhaps. And today we're going to talk about Lanten. Lanten, a island nation to the north of Chult. Correct?
That is true.
What I am going to admit something to you. I'm completely ignorant of all things Lanten.
So am I, mostly.
So it's ripe for adventure and for you to...
I know bibs and bobs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's it.
It has not been as thoroughly covered as many other things have been.
Yeah, I mean, we did one on the Moonshae Islands, and that
Yeah.
seems pretty in depth, and lots of other parts of the Forgotten Realms are detailed ad nauseum. But this is it's got a lot of really interesting details, but you can do it in broad strokes, so you can fill in the fine crafting stuff on your own. You dungeon masters out there.
Yeah, it has some interesting bits and bobs. I mean, one of the things that Lanten's really famous for is that sort of the state religion is the worship of Gond, the Wonderbringer, sort of the deity of inventions and tinkering and craft.
Are there many gnomes on Lanten?
Well, that's one of the things that gets weirdly conflated. So the answer is yes.
There are gnomes, yes.
Yes.
There are gnomes there. But one of the things is that early on in the Forgotten Realms, gnomes and like gear work and steampunk stuff and stuff like that weren't really conflated at all. Gnomes were sort of the quiet race that were hidden people, and there were forest gnomes and rock gnomes, and they were both sort of like these the forgotten folk, they're even called. And Gond was the worship a human deity, and so Lantan was presumed to be sort of populated by mostly humans.
I see.
And as time went on, the Dragonlance setting brought in the idea of Tinker Gnomes, and that kind of like infected backwards into the Forgotten Realms, where a lot of stuff in the Forgotten Realms, gnomes in the Forgotten Realms, started to be sort of Tinker Gnome-like and have lots of experimentation and so on and so forth.
Got it.
So later products say that there are a lot of gnomes in Lantan as well, and in fact, gnomes have their own name for Gond, and I forget what that name is, but it's but essentially that it's the same deity, and so then at that point it's sort of like, well, why would gnomes in Lantan worship a different named deity? No, it's the same deity. So
They just got a different nickname
yeah,
for him.
And the Lantan has one of the things that it has is smoke powder. Obviously, the invention of smoke powder, which is basically like gunpowder but magical.
Got it.
Semi-magical, and also they use bombards, which are basically cannons. So that they are already kind of farther off on the technological scale than other things. And there are a lot of other bits and bobs, like sort of like Da Vinci-esque style flying machines and things like that are also sort of presumed to be on Lantan.
Interesting.
So it's a couple of islands that are sort of a jungle environment. Their sort of cities or homes are described as being sort of many spired towers up on top of hilltops and things with weird railless bridges between them and so on. So it's a very strange place.
Picturesque.
And in let's see, 4th edition for the Spell Plague, someone on the D&D team just didn't like Lantan.
Oh no! Is that person nameless?
And so it was one of the many places that got sort of wiped off the map. And and it was described as being literally wiped off the map, like that.
Just gone.
The giant tsunamis just wiped it out.
Oh, not even with the Abir and Toril. It was actually
just wiped, gone.
The storms that came around
Yeah, and with 5th edition we wanted to rectify that, and so we using the idea of the switching of worlds and so on as an excuse. There could have been tsunamis, but also it could have also just switched over to
right. It could have seemed that it was destroyed because of all the tsunami activity in the area, but the truth is it escaped.
Right. And went to the other world. And so the idea is with the Sword Coast Adventures Guide is that it's back, and some people are starting to show up on the Sword Coast in the ships claiming to be from Lantan and stuff and so on. And they're very guarded about their home and what's going on there and so on. So there's an idea that it's been 100 years. They've had 100 years in this other world doing something, who knows what, over there. And what did they have to do to survive? What did they build? We don't really know.
What other magic did they learn, potentially?
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's
a long time.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So what could come out of Lantan at this point is anything. I mean, maybe there's like floating tanks. I don't know, like
water elemental powered tanks.
Ooh, all right. I like that idea.
So who knows?
So just going back a little bit, how was Lantan founded? Was it part of the Netherese Empire, or was it the settlers that came over from looking for Maztica?
It's probably related to Netherese. I know that there's another weird island down there, sort of near Chult, which is Nimbrol, and that's definitely Netherese settled. And that's like an island of illusionists and so on. So it's probably that's the case. I'd have to double check that, but yeah, it has though been a place that's kind of set itself apart from the rest of the world for a very long time. So they've always kind of guarded their own shores and protected their secrets, and Bombards being one of them.
Yeah. Because if that ever got into the Sword Coast and all the wars that go on there, it would...
you don't want the people, the Amnites and the Titherians and all that, getting their hands on too much of that good stuff.
Exactly. Interesting. So other than those details, what say we wanted to, a expedition was going to Chult and they get pushed aside and they end up in Lanten. What kind of story threads could they pick up if they were there?
Well, I have my own personal idea.
If I were to take my adventures there, I would have the characters basically stumble into some Captain Nemo-esque villain scheme, and probably reveal that 100 years on Abir, given the nature of the threats on Abir, has made the Lantanese very has taught them defense. And I think they're ready now to sort of strike out and declare that no other force will ever threaten them ever again. And so I could see sort of you land there and you stumble upon the secret that they've got a whole war machine ready to go at a moment's notice.
I have a similar idea, except for mine includes the fact that they're not actually... So, like,
are they half mechs?
Half mechs.
So, 14
They're all Master Blasters. They've all got a little gnome on the back of a human.
Yeah.
1492 in the Forgotten Realms is listed as the year of 3 ships.
Ships sailing. Yeah.
3 ships sailing. And so 1492, Columbus sailed across the ocean blue, right?
Yeah.
And so in my head canon, that's because Maztique has been off in Abir for 100 years.
Yeah.
And what happened there is that they turned into a elemental-powered steampunk nation.
Oh.
And so, the Aztec-style elemental-powered steampunk nation is going to come over to the Forgotten Realms in 1492 in a massive army. And Lantan is the only sort of steampunk-style defense that the Forgotten Realms has.
Oh, I like that idea. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That they're setting themselves apart. They don't want to be a part of our war, our the wars of the rest of the Forgotten Realms, but they will step in if there's an outside source.
This is probably giving too much away, but Lantan will have a role to play in a future story.
Oh, well, that is giving too much away.
Yeah.
It's not about Maztica and
that's
elemental mechs.
That's Matt's idea, TM. But yeah, Lantan will show up at some point in some way, in some shape or form.
Nice. Yeah. So it is there. There's a lot there, but I see your reluctance in talking more about it, and now I understand. I didn't even realize I was walking through this landmine.
Over some dangerous territory.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it's near Chult, and it's I could see it being in the same sphere of influence of people wanting to know more about it.
And what's good is it instantly creates a connection to Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah,
because it appears on the map in the product. So, but we don't give it any coverage in Tomb of Annihilation, and that was deliberate.
To be like, here's things that you can have for story threads in the future.
We're going to put this island up in the corner of this big poster map that you get, but we're not going to tell you boo about it.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yes. Now, it's one island, or is there a bunch of islands together kind of?
There are 2 main islands, that I think, is
there's a really big one.
Yeah. Do they have the same government? They're all ruled by a duke or king or something?
I'm not sure what the current government is.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think we don't know at this time. Previously, it was more or less all one big government, I believe, but that's because it was mainly a sort of a state religious state, right, of the Lantanese or the Gondsmen.
I suspect Gond still holds a tremendous influence. There is the go-to religion, but whether it's actually like a theocracy or something else, a kakistocracy.
There's so many ocracies out there.
Yeah.
Ashley Johnson's character is a follower of Gond in Force Grey. Does she have any connection to? Does Halvor have any connection to Lanten? or know of its whereabouts?
I don't know whether Ashley has actually said.
Interesting.
But that could be a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
It's possible she's met Lantanese people.
Yeah.
Maybe even visited the strange island and knows secrets that no one else knows.
Oh, I like that.
Secrets she's been sworn to keep on pain of gunpowder or smoke powder.
Smoke powder. So
smoke powder is a funny thing because it's been around since early editions. In fact, I just stumbled upon a smoke powder write-up in a very old Ed Greenwood RPG product, and it's volatile.
Yes. It is not gunpowder.
Yeah. It looks like gunpowder, but it's a magically created substance. It's not a naturally alchemically created substance.
In many descriptions about smoke powder, it actually will explode just by being exposed to air.
Yeah, which is why they keep them in airtight powder horns and other airtight containers that are fairly secure and resilient, not like glass.
Right.
Because if it breaks and falls out, it's probably going to blow you to bits.
Which can be good if that's what you want to do is throw a grenade or something.
I imagine that the devices that use it have to have a sort of a compartmentalized creation. You can't just like stuff a bunch of it down the muzzle of a thing. You just blow the thing apart.
And so, I mean, getting off into theoretical land, I would imagine that smoke powder guns and stuff like that are actually a lot more like modern weapons than they are sort of weapons that gunpowder weapons would be available sort of in the late medieval period and so on and so forth. Where there's actually like a bullet that encases the gunpowder or smoke powder itself to keep it from the air, and then the exposure to the air.
Right.
Instead of a spark.
Yeah.
Was it invented in Lanten? Is that what you said? That's where the first...
I think as far as we know, that's the case.
Yeah.
Because it's in Lanten and in smoke powders in Baldur's Gate. There's Fellow Gear's Fireworks, and so that's actually a smoke powder fireworks place. And there's across the continent there were at one point Thayan bombards. But those were different. Those were spell-powered bombards. They would actually like hurl giant spells and fireballs and stuff like that.
It's interesting to talk about smoke powder because in a world with so much magic as the Realms has, the need for science to take you down a course, there's no need to create gunpowder because you have fireballs, essentially. But when you're kind of alone out on an island, you got a lot of time on your hands, and you have things that you're combining and just working with in laboratories, and you've got Gond over your shoulder saying, "What have you invented today, sir?" You come up with some odd things, and I think that's why we have smoke powder in the game. It wouldn't exist in the game if we were just talking about a purely spell-driven world.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why Ed made it so volatile is that he wanted it to be something that was not then relied upon instead of
He didn't want it to trump magic.
Got it. Which makes sense. You don't want to necessarily the wizard is less powerful than that because everybody's got guns.
Yeah. So it's volatile and it's rare. It's incredibly powerful and useful.
Yeah.
But it's a secret that very few people know.
Yeah.
Is the Society of Lanten, do we know of it as being having magic users or other, is it more, as you said, it's a theocracy, was very clerical.
Magic users.
Yeah,
okay.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
But it's not a center of magic.
Without magic, they wouldn't have been able to make smoke powder.
I see. Okay.
And there's definitely the implication that a lot of the constructs that the Lantanese make aren't just Da Vinci-esque machines, but that are also sometimes powered by magic.
I see.
So they might make just sort of a wind-up tin soldier, but they also could make a construct like a stone golem or something along those lines.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, man, now I want to go to Lanten. Lantan. We're making it happen in 2025. You heard it here first.
Sooner than that.
2024 then. Okay. We're going to make it. That's a promise. Awesome. Well, cool. I can't wait to hear more about that story, as I'm sure you guys can too. Where can people bug you for what products we're going to come up with next that you get asked questions about that all the time?
With non-answers. People can reach me on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
And I am on Twitter at Cernett, SERNETT.
Awesome. I am at Greg Tito, and I will also not be able to tell you anything about what's happening next. But you can ask me any questions about stuff that is happening right now, which is always happening. All right, thank you guys. We'll be back with more lore you should know or sage advice next week. Thanks.
Yay!
Sweet. All right, spoilers. So many spoilers.
Any questions?
Yeah, I know. Do you guys? We got about 10 minutes here, so throw any questions you guys got into the chat. Always good to see you guys going nuts. Thank you for all of you fun folks who have subscribed. I see a boo emote in here, which always makes me happy. And it wasn't actually from Axis, so that's always good. Someone else is using it. Oh, Hanselman. Hello, Hanselman. No, I'm not going to give you any of my stand-up routine. As I said, someone was like, "Oh, why don't you tell me your jokes?" And they're like, "It never works like that. No, it never. You can't. You need the artifice of. I mean, I have a microphone, but you need like a room of people who are 2-drink minimumed.
Be funny, Greg.
I know, right?
Funny.
Yeah,
Go.
dance for me, monkey boy. Well, then I can do that. I can dance. I can dance for you. If you give me money on Extra Life for my game, I will do. I'll have to write up some jokes. Ayin MC, nice. Thank you for subscribing. Very good. 2 months in a row. What? That's awesome. Thank you so much. Be funny. They're all telling me. I don't know exactly who this is in reference to. Casey Jones asks, could it be that Simon is from Lantan?
Oh, yeah. He would not technically be from Lantan, but his type of his construct, that kind of construct could easily show up there.
Ah, okay.
We don't actually say where Simon's creator hails from. It's not even clear. His creator's name is Fritz von Weirg, which is kind of a weird name for a Lantanese person.
Yeah.
So probably not Lantanese. Yeah.
Maybe he's from the other world and he got left over.
Yeah.
I like that.
But who knows? Maybe there are Simons all over Lantan.
Yeah. Murder bots
bots.
everywhere. Question: What? Well, 8x8 asks a not an easy question, but a one that I'm sure we can jump into. What is Acererak's origin? Where did he come from?
Didn't we talk about that in a previous lore?
We did. Yeah. It really depends upon what product you look at. Ultimately, he's an evil wizard who attained lichdom and is super powerful. There's some products that talk about him being like a half fiend and weird things like that.
I think, and I have to double check because I wrote it 2 years ago, but I think Tomb of Annihilation says he's originally from Orth.
Yes.
That's where he started. And
From
he
Greyhawk.
And he would have followed the normal path to lichdom. As Matt says, he was a wizard. Before he died, he turned into a lich.
Got it.
And from there, his life just took off.
He's
His unlife just took off.
reaching the stars. Nice.
But as Matt says, there's been some weird lore about, is he actually human?
Right. And
Is he
it
a
got
half-fiend?
wacky. I mean, there's even a picture of him as a baby with horns. In one of
Like
our-
Hellboy
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
level?
it's very strange.
Yeah.
But
That's maybe it's just because of the green, the devil face.
That was actually a picture of Asacrack.
The younger brother, Acererak and Asacrack.
No, what have you done, Chris?
It's canon now. That's amazing. Here's a left ball. Left ball? Out of left field, crazy ball from Bad Design Kills. Question asks, what deity would fit a monster hunter? I don't think I know the answer to that. Like a monster hunter as in...
That's your profession. You go
Yeah.
kill monsters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Timora is typically considered a deity of adventurers because she's the sort of goddess of luck
And what do
taking
adventurers
risks.
do?
Yeah, they go and kill monsters.
Pretty much.
But somebody who like really just hates all kinds of monsters is a bit weird in D&D because pretty much everything is a monster. So
Yeah. So if you have any patron of
murder,
the free folk,
hey, ball.
yeah, we've got murder.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but Timora makes sense. You want to be lucky, right? Being praying to that makes a lot of sense if you're fighting big bads. I like that. Any Modrons in Lantan? That's a good question from Edur32.
Oh, that's interesting. as far as we know, the answer to that is no. But I love that idea because I like the idea of Modrons sort of infecting a society in the same way that devils try to infect a society and kind of gain some control over it. So I've always had this idea of running a game at some point where you run into some town or city or something where they're getting their sort of edicts and their judgments of the law and so on and so forth from Modrons, and that they've kind of like been taken over by that sort of ethos of the
pure law,
and then that results in some ridiculous things happening. So.
Yeah,
I like the idea too that because you have this thing called the Great Modron March that happens every 289 years, and it sort of takes the Modrons on a path to different worlds and things. Like there's just a place in Lantan where they touch down and walk, and that's kind of like a highly anticipated thing.
They know every 289 years this is going to happen.
Exactly. And it's kind of a big deal.
And then there's the parade. Let's go watch the
let's go
Modron
watch
parade.
The Modron parade. It's like the eclipse. It only happens every once in a long time.
Long time. Cool. Good question. Random AK asks, is there a Lanten Spelljammer connection?
There probably is a specific one in the Realm Space product. I'm almost certain, in fact, that there is one, potentially also with the Rock of Brawl.
Yes.
What's the Rock of Brawl?
The Rock of Brawl is a settlement built on a, asteroid that orbits the planet.
And
it's got its own air envelope.
The Realm Space product lists a number of different places where spelljamming ships touch down and sort of go to do commerce and so on. And essentially, there's this idea that there's only certain spaces in the world where you're going to be accepted, or where it's safe to kind of land, which is an interesting idea because if you're out in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness, no one's going to see your ship landing. But so like they don't actually go to Waterdeep, for example, and land in Waterdeep. But Waterdeep's known as a place where you can trade. So they sort of land somewhere out in the sea and float their ship in, and then or a boat that they might have to trade with, because their spelljamming ship looks really weird. They don't float that into the harbor,
right?
and then they do their trading and go back on. And I think Lantan might be one of those locations where they just go straight in because Lantanese are like, sure, whatever.
Right, we made your ships.
Yeah,
great.
I suspect there are probably a lot of Lantanese who have gone into Spelljammer space as well to take their inventions to far-flung worlds.
Right. That's kind of a Gandhian thing, is like,
or to sell smoke powder to Scrow.
I think
go ahead, blow yourselves up.
I think bombards and smoke powder weapons are actually a Spelljammer thing, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They're all over Spelljammer.
So.
Well, how else are you going to defend?
So I suspect a very, very strong tie between Lantan and Spelljamming. I think it would not be hard to find a Spelljamming vessel once you were there.
Makes sense. Cool. All right. Well, lots of possibilities, and I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
We should do a Rock of Brawl thing someday.
Yeah,
I ran a campaign there. Yeah,
just all set there. Was it like intrigue, space station type stuff? Or
yeah, very much so, because it has like noble families, and it's got districts with large noble estates and a big fortress and docks galore. Lots of politics going on. It's like Waterdeep in space, basically.
Neat. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and there's an old guy at the docks when you land, and he says, first thing he says to you when you come off the ship is, "Welcome to the Rock."
Losers go home, and
losers.
Everyone just does Sean Connery impressions the entire time, and like, one ping only, please. All right. Well, thank you guys. Good questions all around, and we'll be back with more hopefully next week. We want to get more segments like this in the can because we have like 10 interviews without segments, so we need to get more of these in. So I think next week we're going to try and do that. Try to do like 3 or 4 and get them in there. So we have a couple plans for that. But if you guys have great ideas for more stuff you want to know about as far as lore goes, why don't you let us know on the Twitters? Make it happen. All right, guys. Thank you. We'll be back. Take a little break now, and then we'll be back calling Celeste Konowich from the Venture Maidens.
This show is over.
I call, declare it over.